All right, we're back. It's round 8. Beky Bell's here. And let me just say, the fact that it's round 8 of a Nerd Rage event and there's 5 more rounds today is insane. 2 more rounds of Swiss, and then it's the quarterfinals, semis, and finals. So we're rolling through this event. We've got some updated standings we're going to put up for you right now. Let's go ahead and see them. We see a Will Kruger and Robert Hayes on top, the winner of the last round that we had on camera, and the interviewee that we had last round after that match. And you can see some of the other players that are doing well. There have been some requests to put Caleb Durward's deck back on camera, so we, I believe, are going to do that this round. 4-color elementals, and I'm not sure what his opponent is. I believe it might be the Merfolk deck, which would be something to see.
That would be pretty spicy.
Based on what we saw before, Durward's deck does have a decent amount of cheap removal, and then a fairly compact but powerful win condition. So I don't know how well Merfolk's going to fare there, but we'll find out.
Yeah, certainly interested to find out too. Merfolk, one of those decks that you kind of see every once in a while, hasn't really been a prominent deck in a very long time, but is one of those things that some people still kind of just decide to pick up for a tournament. Has some kind of good new additions in it, and Spreading Seas is certainly a very good card to be playing right now with a lot of the mana bases that are currently happening in Modern. So interesting to see how it's going to play. Clearly doing pretty okay against a lot of this field. So interesting to see it be this high on our leaderboard, and excited to see how it does in this round.
Yeah, and Spreading Seas is especially relevant because Durward's deck depends on having a lot of mountains in play for Valakut and for the Dwarven Mine, and so that could disrupt, even hinder his ability to cast his spells if he just can't get his tokens and his Valakut triggers. I mean, that might matter on its own. So we're going to go ahead and go down to the match. We're in round 8 here, both players with 1 loss on the day, so likely a win in either of the next 2 rounds. Well, a win in this round will allow them to draw in, most likely. A loss and then a win will come down to tiebreakers. So I'm sure both players would be happy to just get it done right now.
Yep.
I was just, okay, there we go. That's fixed. That's good. Everything looks right. And we're in round 8. As soon as the players are ready, they can go ahead and start things off.
And it does look like Caleb decided to go ahead and keep that 7 land, I believe, will be on the play. And Forrest has also decided to go ahead and give the AOK to keep this 7 as well. And our players are about to be off to the races, starting off with a nice little Arid Mesa fetch.
Now, Merfolk did get a new beefy card. It's a 3 mana, what is it, 3 mana, 3/4 indestructible if you have other Merfolk, and when it attacks you draw a card, I believe. Is it, you're better at this name, is it Svalen? Is that the card?
I think so. It's one of those things where I've heard so many people say different things that I've also now become so waffled back and forth on it.
Okay, well.
So I'm sorry, this one I'm not very helpful with.
Okay. Anyway, that is a new nice card from Merfolk, so we'll wonderful to see that make its way into play. Caleb starts with the defensive Crab Clue combo, and Forrest with a foil, and I'm not sure what that art is.
I want to say I don't think it can be a Master of Waves. I'm not sure what this one is either. I do think it's a Time Spiral Remastered card, though, with a specific old border.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it'll become apparent at some point. And we see a doubling up of the Crab Clue combo.
All right. More O3s, more clues.
Yeah, well, O3s work great as long as the Merfolk are blockable. Which they are for the moment, but they don't always stay that way very long. And there's a Lord of Atlantis, and we've already reached the point.
Tideshaper.
It is a Tideshaper. So this is a 1-mana 1/1. If it's kicked, it can turn a land into an island, which is a very nice way to deal with Urza Saga.
Okay.
And
that's a cool card.
Yeah, and as long as the opponent has an island, it is, in fact, a 2/2. So it is now a 3/3. Because of the Lord of Atlantis boosting it up. And so this was played without kicker, so that's another way to, I mean, I'm not even sure Spreading Seas is in for a stack, but there are, whether it is or not, the Tideshaper does give a way to hinder the Dwarven Mine
Mhm.
and the Valakids, although Tidechaper does have to survive in order for that to matter.
Yeah, kind of a downside to Caleb's deck, especially in this matchup, is having to do a lot of fetching, a lot of shocking to be able to play a lot of these spells. And we see Caleb at 12 life now, having taken mostly damage from his own deck here, and then
Yeah.
a little bit of damage from the Merfolk side. And the Merfolk deck likely isn't planning to ease up anytime soon.
No. Okay. So Caleb with a Teferi, that will certainly buy him some time.
Hmm.
If this were to bounce Lord of Atlantis, I'd imagine this is not plussing here, although I suppose it could be, and he would just be daring Forrest to send all his damage at the next turn. But no, he is going to
Oh,
plus. Bounce the Lord.
that goes on the bottom. Yep, all set. Just every once in a while, you leave a card behind. Those pesky sleeves for sure make it a little difficult to pick up all cards at the same time.
Okay, Forrest. Redeploying Lord of Atlantis here. Now attacking Teferi. Yep. So Teferi goes down. Forrest wants to be able to represent counter magic against Indomitable Creativity, whether he has it or not.
Mm-hmm. It does look like there is an Indomitable Creativity in hand.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure there's a fourth land though. And tripling up. 3 03s, 3 clues. Caleb would be interested in cashing in one of these clues here to try and draw a card to hit this land drop.
Yeah, you don't need multiple clues for that Indomitable Creativity, so I imagine that if there is not a land drop to be found, that will be a play. Going into a very separate box to be able to find more clues with a Chase the Mind Sculptor on top. Okay, peep the fit.
Well, yeah, you gotta protect your other cards, so you put the worthless ones on top, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Striker Rich, that will provide the mana source that Caleb is currently lacking, and this is an awful lot of stuff on the board to actually not have anything relevant to your opponent.
Yeah,
And here
interesting
is
indeed. All right.
more Lord of Atlantis type cards.
More fish on the board.
Yeah, more pumps, and we see an attack here for, let's see, 7, I believe. So Caleb down to 5. This is go time.
It certainly is going to be go time, and this Lord of the Land is making it very difficult to stave off any of these attacks, as with the Rogran Triumph and Steam Vents in play, does mean all of these merfolk just get to waltz right into Caleb's life total, and with that, we will see cards picked up. Very interested if we are able to take a look at Caleb Durward's sideboard, see if there are any kind of Cinderclasm effects, ways to try to clear the board of some of these merfolk going into a game 2. Thank you very much.
Wow. Cinderclasm effects. You are so young. Pyroclasm effects is what we
Pyroclasm?
call them.
I'm
But
sorry.
Cinderclasm effect. No, that's fine. Cinderclasm. That's okay. You're speaking to a younger audience than I am. That's okay. We're a good combo. All right. So Caleb Durward's 4-color ramp, which we saw briefly before. And in the sideboard, yes.
What is Blossoming Calm?
Blossoming Calm is 1 white, rebound, gain 2 life, you gain hexproof to the end of the turn. So we saw it earlier when he played against Burn.
Oh.
Very strong. Against some combo decks, it's strong. Against Merfolk, worthless.
Yes, but it is a cool card that I haven't seen, and also has a very pretty art as I'm now just taking a peek at it.
Of course, that would matter to you.
Yes,
much
it does.
more than what the card actually does. So Caleb's sideboard, interesting to me in some ways. Expressive Iteration, not a card you commonly see in sideboards.
Mm-hmm.
But there is his 4th copy there, presumably for grindier matchups. We have a couple of Ether Gusts. We have a couple of Shattering Sprees. We have 1 Path to Exile. So that is a card that could factor in here. There's a Veil of Summer that could protect his spells from counters.
I'm certainly a little worried for Caleb going into this next game, looking at this sideboard. It doesn't seem like we have a lot to deal with a lot of these smaller creatures.
Before when we watched Caleb play, it seemed like he had a whole host of removal to deal with the opponent's creatures, but really, I guess he just drew the right half of his deck, because there are 4 prismatic endings, 2 looks. Also, the hard evidence crabs were able to block previously, and here they were not, so they weren't
Yes.
relevant defense. Let's go ahead and look at Forrest's Merfolk deck if we have time. There it is.
Yep, it's a lot of fish.
Yeah, it's a lot of Merfolk, some 1-drops, some Lords. We do see. So my question was, how much counter magic is there? There are a set of Force Negations main deck, and then I'm sure we have some
3
more
counter
options.
spells.
Yeah, so the right kind of cards. And then there is Svalian of Sea and Sky. So still unsure exactly how to pronounce it, but yeah, it's
I would go with Svalian. If there's a different way to say it, I will figure it out later.
maybe it's Svalian like Sea Alien. Probably not.
Oh. I mean, that might be as good a guess as any, but the limited amount that I've been able to see this card, I feel like every time it's come into play, somebody has had a different pronunciation for it, and that's kind of the case sometimes.
All right. Well, anyway, that's a new powerhouse Merfolk in that it's indestructible and able to survive. Well, not always indestructible, but it draws cards indestructible as long as you control another Merfolk, and your other Merfolk get Ward. So it does a lot of work for 3 mana. And Forrest was able to take down the first game without counter magic, just by attacking. Caleb stumbled a little bit, I think it would be fair to say, but we're starting off here with Fetch Land into Striker Rich. And Forrest, do we have a 1-drop? Do we have a stream of creatures? Do we have a
Ether Vial
okay.
to start off.
Ether Vial and Mutavault.
Certainly interesting. Maybe potentially Caleb did bring in something like the Smash to Smithereens as a way to get rid of something like this Ether Vial, though it does, against decks that are predominantly creatures and then playing Ether Vials, sometimes it does feel really bad to bring in artifact removal because the chance that they don't see it sometimes just makes it so hard for you to want to board into those cards.
Right. Yeah, I would not really expect that to happen, but there we go. Prismatic Ending will take care of it, no problem. So if Forrest is considering forcing for this, then this is probably pretty vital to his mana. I wonder if he is limited on lands in hand. If he's going to give up a Lord of Atlantis here. And okay. When Caleb was maneuvering that card into play, I was like, oh, is this some kind of
Another
interaction on the way
force?
back?
Yeah.
But no, it's just a stomping ground.
Oh, it looks like a counterspell was the draw.
Yeah, forces don't work on the opposing team on your own turn. However, some players mistake that, including my teammates at a team event this summer. Apologies to our opponents if you're watching and you remember who you were. But when I was relayed the story later on, Shane Downey explained how during his own upkeep he had pit cast a force in order to stay alive, and I was like, "You're not allowed to do that."
Oh no!
And he's like, "Oh, you're right." So, yeah, sometimes these cards don't get resolved quite the way they should. Anyway, Mutavault here. Ether Vial dumps in a Merfolk Lord, and this Mutavault's going to try and hit in for 3. And Lightning Helix is going to hit something.
I imagine you're probably low enough on mana that potentially the Mutavault is the choice, but I kind of respect this going for Master of the Pearl Trident, trying to keep all of those lords that give Island Walk off the table, as Caleb does have the Steam Vents. Can't be having things coming in that strong.
All right, so we continue on. Caleb without a bunch of crab walls this time around.
Not like the crab walls were able to do too much considering the Island Walk in the previous game, but
yeah, they did exactly nothing. But okay, so Flashback Striker Rich is the turn. This doesn't feel like an impressive turn, but if mana is what you need, or if you're in the market for some artifacts that don't mean much to you, it's perfect.
And that's certainly the case for Caleb's deck. Wasn't able to see if there was something like an Indomitable Creativity in the deck, or in the hand, rather. Certainly know that it's in the deck. Lord of Atlantis going to do its best Master of the Pearl Trident impression, or vice versa, as they tend to do.
All right, so Mutavault gets in for 3 again. Caleb's still with quite a bit of life, but quite a bit of mana as well. And Forrest, I believe, has 2 Force Negations still in hand.
Ooh, I believe, one is 2 Force Negations, and that's a Merfolk Trickster being pitched to that Force Negation. So choosing to get rid of a creature to continue to hold up the free force spells.
Yeah, so 2 forces gone and one still left, and Forrest running low on cards. And as long as the pressure is able to keep up, then that's fine. But this is well, I'll say one thing: it's extremely unlikely that Caleb would expect Forrest to have another counter
Yeah,
at this point,
I
and
would not.
I believe he does. And that is that Svalin? I don't
Yeah,
know what.
I think that's the alternate art of Svalin.
Of course, it has to be the alternate art.
Of course, every time they've got to make it difficult for us.
All right, so that attack's going to get in for 5, and well, I shouldn't say that. We'll see what happens with the attack. Svalin of Sea and Sky. So it is currently indestructible. There are 2 other Merfolk in play at the moment. However, when Forrest passes the turn, there will only be 1 other Merfolk in play. Whenever it attacks, draw a card, and here we have Dwarven Mine creating a second token to double block Lord of Atlantis, and yeah, so it's gonna work.
Okay. Yeah.
It's gonna work. So Mutavault's gonna get in for 3, but from the future, it's gonna not have Island Walk anymore.
That's
And
kind of big.
yeah,
Certainly makes it easier for Caleb to have a hope of staying in this game a little longer and get to this point.
yeah, I think we're getting to 6 mana here. Well, more than that, really, with the treasures. So creativity, even Primeval Titan is hardcastable at this point. Another dwarf token. I don't think these dwarf tokens are going to get names. I think mostly they just get sacrificed or die chump blocking, but
Yep.
we'll see. We'll see. Okay, there's creativity. And there's
And
force
the
number
other
3.
Forrest, but
Yeah.
now Forrest is hellbent.
Right. And Caleb is nearly hellbent. He's got a lot of mana. And Svalin is not going to get to go to work and redraw Forrest some new cards. So he's got more action going on right now.
Oh, all right. So drawing another Mutavault, not the worst if we're able to draw lands continuously upward, actually, because then we can continue to attack with more Mutavaults. But this draw for this Valen attack will be good.
And I mean, Caleb's at 8. So this is 5 coming in here. There is 1 token that can block. I don't hate the idea of blocking now, since if Landwalk is acquired, if Island Walk is acquired, then there won't be any blocking in the future.
Yes.
But Caleb dropping to 6 here. If Island Walk is acquired, Caleb would probably die next turn, or regardless of whether he can block or not this turn. So blocking may not be very important here, but he chooses to do it, and I think that's probably the right choice, as he has other sacrificial fodder.
No, I like your reasoning of if Island Walk creatures acquired, having the life total matters a lot more. Would be unfortunate if it was something to give Island Walk that costs 3 and is able to be cast for free with Ether Vial, but you got to play to your outs and not to the things that you're simply dead to.
All right, Mana Morphos for Caleb Durward is just a redraw here.
Oh, it looks like it's a Valakut and an extra land in the hand for Caleb Durward.
Oh, well, that definitely came up in the wrong order. A land here would allow a lethal attack.
Oh.
Yep, and there it is. And Forrest, Winstead, and the Merfolk Nation take down Caleb Durward here in his 4-color ramp deck. The Merfolk deck looked pretty solid there. I don't know that I mean, you just can never expect. I mean, the 3rd Force. How did that even happen?
That's not even. I know. I mean, I was excited too to see Caleb get to go off with an indomitable creativity. I think every time you get to see that card kind of do a thing, it's always so exciting. But in that situation, just the 3rd Force is such a beating, and so many decks are just going to be so dead to it. So a great match, and like Caleb still has a chance to potentially play for top 8 in the next round. So still in it, still has hope.
And we move into this backup game here, which appears to have just ended.
I also not sure
It's,
who won,
um,
as I'm not sure that we had life totals updated.
yeah, I'm not sure it was decided by life. Phil Silberman had a fair amount of planeswalkers in play. We'll go ahead and look at deck lists for Raja Suleiman and Phil Silberman, Azorius Control Mirror, and see if we can pick out who the winner is likely to be and find out who the winner was of that game, although I believe it was Phil, probably. So let's go ahead and move into that when we get a chance. Azorius
Maybe.
Mirror. Okay, we'll get it up in a minute. Blue-white control mirror. I mean, there's planeswalkers, there's counters, and really, Teferi Time Raveler's existence plays such an important role.
Huge role.
I would not be at all surprised. In fact, I would be surprised if there isn't a color splash in both decks off of Triome to enable Prismatic Ending to remove 3-drops, including Teferi. But let's take a look. This is Phil Silverman's of Azorius controlled variant. It is a Kahira deck. Solitude is the only creature. And we see
do you see Ragran Triome in there?
Yeah, we see a variety of Teferis. We see a single copy of Jace, a bunch of counters, Verdicts, Spreading Seas, and a single Chalice of the Void. And he's going to have a Mystical Dispute and some other counters to board in. And he's got 4 Shark Typhoons in the sideboard. I imagine those are all going to come in.
Yes.
Let's see.
Shark Typhoon, great in some of these control mirrors.
Let's see if Raja Sulaiman's deck is noticeably different.
Oh, no Shark Typhoons. As well as
potentially
being a Yorion deck?
Right,
yes.
So this is a Yorion deck. So some of the lands at the bottom are cut off on the screen, but this is a Yorion deck. So there's more of everything, but there are no Shark Typhoons. You are right about that.
And I think that, like, Shark Typhoon is so big in a lot of these control mirrors because it's just a creature that is coming onto the battlefield that is going to be, a lot of the times, very huge and a big clock, and is kind of a pest to get rid of. Like, at least you have the Teferi Time Raveler, so you can kind of get rid of it for free. But the fact that it gets to just come into play off of a cycle and you don't really get a chance to counter or interact with it a ton that way makes it very good.
Yeah, and actually one of its key uses, even when it was first printed, was immediately identified as this is a way you can get out of being locked by Teferi Time Raveler, because you can cycle it even when you're cut off of your opponent's turn. It's still a thing you can do to interact and then set up an attack. Teferi Time Raveler, not going to be easy to resolve because both players are going to realize how important it is. But if it does resolve, it's going to be needed to deal with, or just all the counters. I mean, so many of the important cards in your deck are just shut down.
Yeah. All right. While our players are taking a mulligan here, I have an interesting question for you. Do you look at the top cards after you decide to take a mulligan?
Absolutely not, ever, in any case.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in that same vein. I don't like anything that would alter my thought process going forward in other mulligans. So I never look at the top card. And I'm kind of interested if people in chat want to kind of sound off. Do you take a peek at the other cards that are on the top of your library, or do you just go ahead and ship it back and not think any more of it? Because I'm always surprised when I see how many people take a peek at the extra cards.
Yeah, well, I'm not superstitious, but I am certainly vulnerable to second guessing my decisions later on. And looking at that card there, it definitely is possible it could influence me in the future. Like, oh, I would have drawn it, or I wouldn't have drawn it, whatever. And it's just, I don't need that. I don't need to worry about that. I've got enough problems already.
Yep.
So, Phil Silberman keeps 6, gets in there with his Triome. In fact, Rogan Triome on both sides. Now, we saw the Rogan Triome. It's also conceivable that you could splash 2 Triomes that are offsetting, so you could get a 4-colored Prismatic Ending. Phil was not doing that. They didn't check for Raj's deck because a lot of his lands were invisible because of the size of the deck list. But playing the 4-color Omnath deck, there are certainly times where having a 4-color Prismatic Ending has come up. Removing a Jace, the Mind Sculptor. Believe it or not, removing a Goblin Charbelcher has happened, and and so it is doable at the cost of 1 extra tap land in your deck to be able to generate the 4th color. And Raja Sulaiman, with just more deck to work with, conceivably could have fit that in, even though Phil did not. So Archmage Charm to draw 2 cards for Raja Sulaiman, and Phil Silberman down a card on the Archmage Charm 2-for-1, and needs to, as long as he makes his land drops, though, these games could last long enough that you're able to completely recover from being down a card.
Ooh, and a nice APEC plains there. That's
Okay.
a little bit of a swag land choice that I very much approve of. I love some of those old border lands that people play.
How is it that you're able to appreciate old border lands, but your generic term for a red sweeper is Cinderclasm?
Cinderclasm. It's because I've
It's
been playing a lot of standard lately for the VML.
okay. All right. So Raja Sulaiman with his 5th land drop in hand, and I believe lots of action,
Ooh.
including Teferis, but there's no way there's coming down into
Oh.
obvious counter magic. Here is
Shark
a
Typhoon.
Shark Typhoon. Yeah, 2/2 Shark Typhoon.
Ooh, represented by the Sharpedo Pokemon card.
All right. It's good to have you here, Beky. You pick up all the things I would have absolutely no idea.
I got you. I played a lot of Pokemon last night since Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl just came out. Ooh, the Snapcaster Mage, though. Archmage's Charm is in the yard and could get rid of this Shark token.
It could steal a Shark token. It could also draw 2 more cards. We're not going to, well, we may not find out, as there is a counter spell. And now, yeah, it's hard to fight over that counter spell because if Raja fights over it, he's not going to have any mana to flash back the charm.
Yes.
So he just lets it go.
Ooh, Dovin's Veto in hand for Raja.
Yeah, those. There were
And
some in
a
the sideboard.
Teferi.
Yeah, so Teferi with Dovin's Veto to back it up is not a guarantee because a Dovin's Veto back from Silberman will still stop it. But there is Teferi. In fact, I think there's 2 Teferi.
Oh, there are 2 Teferis. Ooh.
All right, 1 down.
Oh, this is gonna be. I mean, this is just the 3 force of negations all over again. You
Sure.
thought that you were safe with this Dovin's Veto for this first Teferi? Nah, I've got a second one.
Yeah, and so second Teferi Time Raveler here can get rid of the Shark token, and
oh,
never mind.
Gosh. Okay, I was
Not
about to say, yeah, barring a mystical dispute, this is gonna be nasty. But Phil, that mulligan in dividends here.
Now Phil with his own Teferi also has a Jace in hand, but leads with Teferi, as that means his spells are uncounterable for the immediate future. Has a counter spell in hand. Raja Sulaiman's Dovin's Veto and any other counter magic is now worthless. And it stinks to have to prismatic ending a Teferi that already cantripped, but you don't really have a choice. And there it is.
Yep.
Phil Silberman with a counter spell. Do you fight over this? I think you do. He chooses not to. And so now this Dovin's Veto in Raja's hand is perfectly live, and Phil may be thinking he's going to try and resolve that Jace next turn, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to feel pretty good when you also have a counter spell. Maybe there's a chance that Phil is actually kind of sniffing out the Dovin's Veto that is in Raja's hand as well, and playing this way as a result of that. But we shall see on this next turn, now that that Shark is gone and more pressure needs to be applied. Potentially we will see Phil try to jam this Jace.
Yeah, Raja with only 2 cards left, I believe. One of them, the Dovin's Veto, as you pointed out.
And I think the other one was a prismatic ending, the third copy.
So Phil Silberman did make up some of the card deficit with the cycled Shark Typhoon. There is Dovin's Veto taking out Jace. There's a land drop, and both players might be kind of out of stuff right now, although I believe it's
but it drew it to Fairy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there is a counterspell left in Phil Silberman's hand. Plains will not help cast it, but there is the Triome, and then down the bottom of his mana section is the Breeding Pool. So Phil Silberman does have 4 colors, 1 Triome, but there is a Breeding Pool to help cast a 4-color prismatic ending if he should need it.
Yeah. I was wrong also. Raja's hand was not another prismatic ending. It was a Field of Ruin.
Okay. So now his hand, as he picks up Yorion, it's Yorion and Teferi. And Phil Silberman picks up his Kahira. So companions unlocked on both sides. And now Castle Vantress activates for Raja Sulaiman. Archmage Charm. This is going to go a long way. Teferi, counterspell. Do you have anything else? Please say
Ooh.
no. The answer is yes. Archmage Charm. Counterspell
Oh,
number 2.
another counter spell. Holy
Oh,
smokes. I would have never guessed that Phil took a mulligan this game because
that's
this has just been like every answer that Phil has basically had to have, Phil has somehow had in like the exact correct form as well.
So Raj's only leftover card was Yorion, and Phil is aware of that. He draws a Jace for the turn. Chooses not to cast it. Now, he doesn't know whether or not Phil has anything, and sitting on the Jace, I mean, the Jace isn't going to get better. So I know you don't want to commit mana main phase. You don't want to. Okay, I understand what's happening here. The reason he waited is he wants to remove one of the colors of mana so that the Jace cannot get hit by Prismatic Ending.
Yeah, I like that actually. I think that that's really smart.
Yeah,
in
that
this
makes
matchup
sense.
where your life total isn't mattering as much, you've got the time to kind of spend an extra turn to have like the Field of Ruin isn't something you can very easily interact with. So I really respect this play. I also respect how quickly these control players are playing. Even though this is like meant to be a very long drawn out match, they are playing at a very good pace for control players, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, not only taking away the red, also taking out the blue here. Or the green, excuse me.
Yeah, so Prismatic Ending more limited now, and you're right. I mean, these players are playing rather quickly, and they're both aware. These are experienced players. They're aware that the chance of running out of time in a matchup like this exists, and for Raja, especially being down a game, you really don't have anything to waste. And these players with 2 losses already, so a draw is going to put them out of top 8 contention.
Ooh,
Another
2 Jaces.
And there is mana to play them both in the same turn. There is a counterspell for the first
another one?
Well, we knew that one was there, I think. Here's a second Jace, and you have more Phil Silberman. You do not. Jace lands.
I'm pretty sure Phil has drawn all 4 counterspells, so I would hope that there's not another one.
All right, so Jace, and this is going to be unfortunate. So this Jace comes down, brainstorms, and I mean, why wouldn't you brainstorm, right? Because what could happen to your Jace regarding damage? Well, that Hardcast Solitude is going to come down and pick off the Jace. Great exchange for Phil. I mean, Raj is up a card from the brainstorm, but the Jace is gone, and Phil Silberman looking good.
Ooh, Supreme Verdict. Okay, so could get rid of this Solitude if we're. I mean, we have to be a little worried about our life total being this much lower than Phil. So yep, Supreme Verdict is going to be the call, and Phil going to choose to probably just draw up 2 more cards, but it's going to be countered by the exact same card.
All right. Things continue on. Yorion in hand for Raja, able to draw 1 card because of the Spreading Seas that it could blink, but not much else. Potentially, we're just going to see a bunch of Castle Vantress activations in the near future. I have to say, in a stalemate, which I would not say this is because Phil has more action in hand, but even in a stalemate, Phil would be advantaged because of the Shark Typhoons that Raja does not have.
Yep. Ooh, and a Dovin's Veto, I believe, was the draw for turn, and now I believe we're probably going to see something like the Kihira come down, just slowly start to throw out these threats and try to just chip away at this last bit of Raja's life total.
And here is another Castle Vantress activation. Finds it to Fairy.
I mean,
I don't think you can. I don't think even though he may not be confident it'll resolve, I don't think he can afford to just bottom them both and then potentially draw a land, because that's really what you have to do here is not draw a land.
Yep. But as we saw, the Dovin's Veto was the draw for the last turn, and Phil will say no to this Teferi. Dovin, Teferi's arch enemy.
He'll say yes to the Teferi that he just drew. That might be the end of it. Phil Silberman won a Nerd Rage Legacy event back before the pandemic, playing Storm, and looking good to take down this match, potentially squeeze his way into a top 8 with another win here today. If he can close this out. Here is a Yorion, Archmage Charm to counter, actual counterspell to counter back, Spreading Seas resets, and I mean, Raja's still in it.
Still in it. Can block, but this Teferi could also say that Yorion is not long for this world. Raja only at 9, and this Kahira with 3 power does make that clock no joke.
Right. Okay, so Teferi draws. And so a colonnade is added to the board. And untaps from the Teferi mechanic. So, Raja, what do we have? We're going to need something. We do have a Yorion, which can attack and take a big chunk out of Teferi, Hero of Dominaria's loyalty.
But chooses not to. I imagine you wouldn't activate a Castle of Interest unless you were about to go to your turn. So now starting to reach a little bit more of a passive state here, but Solitude is the draw.
Yeah, certainly there was a vulnerability to attacking the area. The Yorion attack was not free at all, as Castle, as Kahira and the mainland. I just said the name of it a minute ago and forgotten somehow. That's impossible, right?
Celestial Colonnade?
That's the one.
Colonnade also is an elemental, so it gets buffed by Kahira?
So it'd be for 8. Okay, that would be an attack for 8 then. Good on you to pick up on that. I would have missed that. So this Yorion attacking now. So I feel like now Raja may have been hoping to draw other interactions and not get to this point, but given the option of attacking now or attacking last turn probably would have been preferable. But this is the way things are. He does have a Solitude in hand now, so maybe the thinking is, well, now I can defend against the opposing colonnade on the swing back if it even were to come. And here is a whole lot of mana for
a giant shark typhoon.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Now there is an answer to this. So Silberman will gain some life, and Teferi will lose some loyalty. And there is a blocker now for the Kahira. So Raja Sulaiman, not dead.
Not dead, not in too bad of a spot. I believe we're going to be gaining 9.
That is a fair number.
Or 7. Sorry, 9 total mana. 2 of it has to go to Shark Typhoon remaining. So that was a attempt at a 7/7 shark.
Yeah, and maybe importantly, Silberman is tapped out now, and we're still in combat. So Raja Sulaiman with 4 mana untapped will have.
I do think we need to tap another white mana for this Solitude, though. It is 2 white, yes?
Yeah, but I think there's a Mystic Gate is the land.
Oh, the Mystic Gate is the other land?
Islands.
Okay, nope. That sounds right, too, because I don't see it in the other spots. Correct. Cool.
So the player's confirming life totals here. There may be maybe they missed a fetch land somewhere, or they're trying to figure out how much life is to be gained. Anyway, Yorion takes 4 loyalty off of Teferi. So Teferi can still minus and remove something, but that's unlikely. And here it is, draw.
Another Shark Typhoon.
Phil was way ahead on cards at this point.
So ahead. I mean, it doesn't help that pretty much all of the Archmage's Charms that Phil got to cast this game were put towards drawing new cards. The Shark Typhoons that are just great in this matchup also get to draw us back cards. Just everything has kind of come up, Phil. There's a little bit of a discrepancy here about life totals. Solitudes do make it a little bit difficult, a lot of fetching and shocking for mundane first parts of this game. Just trying to make sure that we are correct on life totals here, as Raja now is at 13, it looks like.
Yeah, and this Teferi Hero of Dominaria has drawn, I think, 4 cards on its own, so that's really put Phil in the driver's seat. What more do we have here? He is behind in creatures for the moment, not anymore. Here's a Solitude, Counterspell, Dovin's Veto, Counterspell, Dovin's Veto.
Oh?
No, I'm sorry. That was still the first Dovin's Veto.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
What are we trying to decide where Solitude is attacking? What is happening right now?
You know what? I think I confused myself on what turn it was. I think this is Phil's turn that Kahira was attacking when all of this started.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure anymore. Too much happened. All right. Solitude.
Yes, okay. That sounds right.
All right. So, Raja attacks, Raja castles on his upkeep. This Yorion knocks out this Teferi.
We have the Shark Typhoon.
Yeah. Phil has another Shark Typhoon. It's a chump blocking shark. But
not
just
ideal, but
just buying one turn means that the fairy, when it gets attacked next turn, won't die, as it will gain another loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Phil also castles on upkeep. Yeah, you can see why these players are making an effort to play quickly, because there's just a lot. These games last a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of decisions to be made. Oh, okay.
All right. I feel like we should have done that the moment that Teferi came down, but I better late than never, as Phil's going to go ahead and bury the Yorion and end this spreading seas.
Interesting. I mean, there's not much else good the prismatic ending's going to do,
Mm-hmm.
unless Raja ends up with another Teferi randomly. And by randomly, I mean that would be really good for him this turn.
Very good indeed.
So players are aware that the Yorion is coming back to the top of Raja's deck in 2 draw steps. Just pause and take a breath here as Phil untaps. Draws. Plays Little Teferi. Little Teferi resolves. Raja castles.
Just trying to get closer to that Yorion again, imagine.
Well, one of those cards is the Yorion. And both stay on top. Yorion looked like it stayed as the second card.
What card would you keep over Yorion in this situation? Hard casting it.
Yeah,
Okay.
before I digest your question there, we'll acknowledge that a hard cast Shark Typhoon is now on the board. That is that Omen of the Sea?
Yep, Omen of the Sea.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of one of the things that you have to play when you're playing Yorion as your companion is a nice
Yeah.
bit of filler, allows you to draw, and also plays very nicely with Yorion, as it will here.
Yeah, you're right about that. That comes in. It looks like that will resolve. Link the Omen of the Sea. Fresh. Opt. And it was a white card that was drawn. So the Solitude that I think is in Raj's hand is able to be pitched, albeit not on Phil's turn because of Lil Teferi. But I don't really know how Raja is going to beat Shark Typhoon.
Yeah, it would take a.
Oh, there's a Spreading Seas. Casual, get a 2/2 Flying Shark. What else we got?
Yeah, all of a sudden, all of these mundane cards that Phil is playing in his deck seem extremely good. And this final Shark Typhoon kind of came right in time, because I believe we also saw Raja rifle through Phil's graveyard and see that I believe this is the 4th Shark Typhoon, and there are 4 in the sideboard, and they've all been seen in this game.
Have they really? Wow. Okay. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 mana for Prismatic Ending on Omen of the Sea.
Ooh.
Get a shark.
I mean,
I'm not sure. Were there mana already tapped? I don't know why we spent 6 on that. Maybe there's mana already tapped. I don't know. Exactly.
I think we're just trying to make as big of a shark as possible.
You are right. That's what happened. All right, so a 5/5 shark comes in. Fairy gets attempted to be removed. Cryptic commands like, no, thank you. Here's another 4/4 shark. Oh, Supreme Verdict cleans them all up. All right.
No!
All this work you just did, start over. But Phil starts over with 2 Teferis in play and a Shark Typhoon.
Still the Shark Typhoon, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
the
this
first
is a valiant
week
effort.
Of sharks negated.
Yes. But there were a lot of sequels to the Shark movies, right? The Sharknado movies.
That's true, yes.
I mean, that's not my that's not my kind of thing, but I'm pretty sure there was like 4 of those at least.
Yes.
So that is pretty much what Raj is living through right now. This is Sharknado Part 7, the Teferi Destruction Zone.
Yep, an attack for 7 and for 4 does put Raja to 1. A Spreading Seas to make sure that this Hall of the Storm Giants cannot be activated into a 7/7 with Ward again. And Wall of Omens, not Celestial Colonnade has flying?
It does. Yes. And Phil Silberman finishes that one out with a hard-fought and rapidly played 2-0 win over Raja Sulaiman there.
I mean, that was
So
probably one of the most fun control matches, control mirrors that I've seen in a long time, and I think it was in part by how quickly their pace of play
right.
was and understanding the matchup and just able to be like, "Okay, I know what I'm looking for in this matchup. These are the things that I'm doing," and just continuing to play at a very good pace, and it was back and forth. Phil did end up in the driver's seat pretty quickly, but as control mirrors do, you still have, like, a lot of room to play within
Mhm.
the game, and very hard fought by both of those players, and congrats to Phil.
Yeah, no, that was a cool one to watch. All right. So to recap where we're at, we are completing round 8 of the Swiss. We've got one more to go, followed by the top 8. Let's go look at what the players are playing for. This is a modern 5K here at NRG Gaming. We're in Mundelein, Illinois. There is the slide with the cash payouts as well as the points, and the top 4 players also qualify for the arena weekend.
Woo! Let's go.
Yeah, our next event featuring a pair of these 5Ks is next month in December 11th and 12th in Milwaukee. Saturday, Legacy 5K, Sunday, Modern 5K. So if you're living in the Milwaukee region, or really if you're living in the Chicago region or anywhere else in the Midwest, get in your car, drive over there. If you're living in Hawaii, it's time for a vacation. I mean, who
A
doesn't
vacation to
who
Milwaukee?
doesn't want to travel to Milwaukee
Hmm.
in December? Are you crazy?
Hmm.
It's a vacation hotspot. Get over there. Bring your Legacy and Modern decks. We'll be there. We'll put on a show for you. It'll be a good time. You can win some money. Grand times will be had by all. Anyway, we've got one more round of Swiss left. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stick around.